Hello everyone, it's Oliver Harper here, and I'm back with a new LaserDisc update video. I've not done one for about 5 months, and since that time I've picked up about 8 LaserDiscs. Nothing crazy, nothing, big collector's box sets, nothing kind of obscure, but some good titles, and ones I've kind of been hunting for a little bit behind the scenes. You see the odd one pop up and think, oh, that's a little bit too pricey, I'll wait for it to drop down in price. And then suddenly it's there for like, buy it now for like £15 or £10. I'm like, I'm having that. So first up we have Poltergeist, which is the Dolby Digital release. Obviously the film came out in 1982. It came out on the LaserDisc format in the early 90s as part of a CAV box set. I think before then there was like a pan and scan release. I used to have the CAV box set, which came with a featurette on the film, which didn't get ported over to the DVD or the Blu-ray. Poltergeist is one of those movies where it's just been left by the wayside when it comes to special features. Nothing's ever been produced in terms of a commentary, retrospective, anything like that. There's no documentary about the visual effects, which are really impressive in this by ILM. So it's kind of an odd one because it was a huge success back in '82. And for it to be kind of just a bare bones release throughout the many years it's been reissued on the formats, it's kind of puzzling. But so this one, some of the fans call it a stealth AC3 release, which is kind of a term only coined in the last couple of years where MGM or Warner Brothers or whatever would reissue a movie with a Dolby Digital track and don't put much fanfare or advertising into the fact that it has that audio track. So in the corner, it's a very kind of poorly kind of stuck on label when they've reprinted the cover, and on the back they've put a little logo there. So this comes with no extras, it's just, chapter stops. It's published by Image Entertainment, who are handling all the LaserDiscs in the late 90s in terms of like distributing Warners, MGMs, etc., because they were kind of now focusing on DVD, and Image were going to cater for the LaserDisc market. So you've got a very sort of thin kind of LaserDisc sleeve. It's not a gatefold. It's a nice little bit of gloss to it. The transfer is very nice. It's not, I think it is a slight step up over the CAV release from the early 90s, and the AC3 track is very punchy because Poltergeist would have had a 70mm presentation of 6-track Dolby back in '82, so it's probably been derived from that. And you also get the option for the PCM Dolby stereo mix, so you've got kind of 2 decent audio options there. And this film scared me shitless as a kid, especially when what was it? They kind of argue back to the beast, and it just screams, and everyone just gets pushed back, and all the lights go out. And I love the scene when she runs down the corridor and uses that kind of effect where you kind of you zoom in and sort of, well, with a dolly, isn't it? You sort of track in and zoom out. Gives you that kind of that Jaws effect, isn't it? When he sees the kid in the sea and it gets eaten, and when the mother's running down the hallway, Spielberg would deploy that again, or Toby Hooper, depending on who you think directed the movie. Yes, a great flick. Great score by Jerry Goldsmith as well. And number 2 is an okay film, but I love the score by Jerry. I think they're all kind of scored well by him. It's crazy this was a PG, because it would have, you saw it when you're 8 years old, it would scare the shit out of you, you know what I mean? I think it was a 15 in the UK. I don't think it was a PG. I'll have to find one of the old newspaper clippings on the cinema advertising to see if it was a PG, but I don't think that would have got past the BBFC. But in America, it was, so would have scared a lot of American kids at the time. Yeah, so I'm very happy to have this. It's nice to have the Dolby Digital release. And I got it for a decent price. It wasn't, wasn't cheap, but it wasn't too expensive. So kind of like, yeah, reasonable cost for this. And yeah, it's nice to have. Next up, we have Inner Space, one of my personal favourites by Joe Dante. Many people would class maybe Gremlins as his best movie, or Matinee. My mind's going blank. But for me, Inner Space is the one. Very funny film. Incredible visual effects by ILM, especially when they go inside the body, and when he attacks the guy goes in to stop Dennis Quaid, and he defeats him, and then he falls into his stomach, and then his stomach acid just kills him, and he just, his reaction is just basically to burp. Yeah, it's a widescreen release. Before, I'd always see the pan and scan versions, but it's nice to have the widescreen version, which is obviously the first time it was released on the format. This must have been in 1990 or something like that. And the film came out in '87, but this would have been reissued perhaps maybe a year or 2 later in the widescreen format. Not a huge amount of chapters. You've got 7 chapters kind of per side, 7 to 9 chapters. No trailer. It's not a gatefold release. It's obviously typical Warner Brothers release with the sidebar here, but thankfully they retain a lot of the theatrical poster on the cover. So yeah, it makes for a great, if you didn't collect Laserdiscs, in terms of like, if you had a player and you saw this floating around in like a LP shop, that'd be great to frame, wouldn't it? Put it in and display it. Or perhaps if you found the soundtrack, you probably had the same type of cover. The transfer on this was pretty good. I mean, I didn't think it was bad. I suppose it's down to how you have your player set up. It seemed a little bit too dark in areas. As I'm watching it on a 65-inch OLED TV, you are kind of blowing it up quite a bit. So you can see the inherent, problems of Laserdisc on a giant screen. But it still kind of stands up quite well. If you've got a decent video scaler. So yeah, in the space looked nice, the sound is good. Again, another Jerry Goldsmith score, which is cracking. I got this pretty cheap. I rarely see this version pop up on eBay in the UK in widescreen, so yeah, very happy to have that. Next up, we have my personal favourite Tim Burton movie, Ed Wood. Not Edward Scissorhands, but Ed Wood, based on the terrible filmmaker of the 1950s, Johnny Depp, fantastic performance, along with Martin Landau, who I think he may have got an Oscar nomination for that performance, I can't remember, playing Bela Lugosi. Yeah, black and white photography throughout. The transfer is pretty good, it's a widescreen release. There was a little bit kind of like, it's like chroma noise or something in the picture. So it wasn't, I mean, the DVD is far better than this. I mean, this is kind of a release from, essentially when the film had come out, like maybe 6 months afterwards. The film is prone to some laser rot, I've read online, but my version is fine, so happy with that. And it pops up on eBay for like £3 or £4. The cover's kind of okay. I mean, it's not like, I don't know, the theatrical poster was a lot better. It just seems like a bit of a, I suppose, like a throwback cover design to the sort of 1950s type movies, I suppose. Doesn't come with any extras. Dolby Surround PCM mix. It sounded nice as well. I said, yeah, so even though I didn't really need this, because the DVD's fine, and it's a movie, right? That should be on the Criterion collection, right? Surely, it seems baffling they wouldn't, have this on the label, because it totally deserves to be on it. There is a Blu-ray release, right? I haven't seen the UK one. It may be released in the USA only, but maybe there's a UK release of Ed Wood on Blu-ray, but I've still got my old special edition DVD, which was pretty cool. Yeah, love this film. I've gone back to it many, many times. This is, yeah. There's some other movies of Tim Burton's I love, but this one really is the one that I think is true to him, Tim Burton, and his kind of interests. I feel like Joe Dante, you know what I mean? Like with things like The Burbs or Inner Space. Anything that deals with kind of B movies, those guys shine. And in the case of Ed Wood, it's Tim Burton at his finest. As some of you may know, I'm a big Superman fan. I love the Christopher Reeve films, that's my bag. I do like the comics, of course, I read them as a kid. But I'm not overly familiar with the comics. I've read a few of the kind of graphic novels. I've got some in my collection, of course, and I've got a bunch of comics under my kind of bed from back in the 80s and the 90s. But also I loved as a kid the Fleischer cartoons from the 1940s. Those tapes would get reissued many a times because they've obviously out of copyright, I think, so anyone could reissue them on tape. And they always come in like various different kind of video covers, right? And you get fooled and go, oh, it's kind of a cool Superman cartoon. Oh, it's the Fleischer cartoons again that's being re-released. And I saw them on eBay for LaserDisc. The cover's shite, right? It's basically Image or whoever had put this out on VHS, and that's the kind of VHS cover, and you got the classic kind of image design of the LaserDisc come out the side. Obviously it's from the 1980s, I think it's 1988 perhaps this release came, yeah, 1988, and you get all the cartoons. It's not a gatefold, unfortunately, but it contains everything. Picture-wise, it's not great. It's very soft, very dirty in areas, very dusty. The sound is a bit hissy in places as well. You come to expect that with some of these kind of movies from the 1940s that haven't been taken care of properly. So you can get this cartoon, or this cartoon series, on DVD and Blu-ray. Obviously, there was the infamous Warner Brothers release of this on Blu-ray from a couple of years ago, which used a lot of noise reduction and zapped the detail out of the picture, and everyone hated it. So it's best to stick to the Superman Anthology collection, which has the Fleischer cartoons on them as extras, and they've been left untouched. I mean, I've probably had some work on them, but not to the extent of the Blu-ray standalone release. Or you can get the DVDs, because, it's fine. So yeah, this was going for like £10. I've never seen it being sold in the UK. So I was kind of, you know, ebay.com from America to find this. I got it for a pretty cheap price. No one was interested in it. And maybe because it was the Fleischer cartoons, or the cover wasn't particularly appealing. So on the back it tells you when the first episode was shown in cinemas in September of 1941, and then the last one in July of 1943. So there's, how many episodes? I think there's 16, something like that. I'm sure there's a couple I've not actually seen. No, I have actually seen all of them because I recognise the names. But yeah, one of the best. The Mechanical Monsters, you know, is such an iconic episode, and the magnetic telescope as well. I mean, it's just an incredible animation in this. You know, I mean, the stories are always kind of light. This was many people's first introduction to Superman and seeing him in action, but in animation form. And it, you know, it's, I think, probably better than Disney at the time. So these are regarded as some of the finest animation from that period, and people still love talking about these, you know, these cartoons. So yeah, I'm happy I found it on LaserDisc, but yeah, picture ain't great. So, you know, if you are, you know, a LaserDisc collector and you see this going for a lot of money, don't waste your time. If it's going cheap, yeah, then grab it. But just be aware that the picture is not the best it can be, and it's a, you know, pressing from the late 80s. So if this came out in the mid 90s by Warner Brothers or whoever, then it probably would have had a better transfer and more time and care into the presentation. Next up, we have a title on the Criterion collection, and it's Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove. This is a gatefold release. As you can see there, very nice cover. I do have this on Blu-ray, also under the Criterion label, because they would release it in the UK. I think one of their early titles, I think they did when they started releasing Criterion Blu-rays in the UK. This was supervised by Kubrick at the time, in the early 90s. It's a 1992 release. Presented in CAV, comes with a trailer, an early screenplay draft, an Atomic Age archive packed with films and photos, original trailer. On the back here, I was like, oh, it includes a discussion about the transfer. Oh, cool, might show you some sort of telecine work, them showing you how it's done. No. It's just like text on screen. You just cycle through. It's like, boring. So yeah, this wasn't going for a lot of money, pretty cheap, and I do love this film. Very funny film. And it has a kind of mix of different aspect ratios that go from 1:3:3 to 1:6:6. So a lot of the exterior kind of stuff, especially with the planes, is like 1:6:6, and then when he goes inside, I think the interior stuff is 1:3:3. Maybe I've got that the wrong way round, but it does kind of alternate. But once if you're playing it through a video scaler and you set it to 1:8:5 or 1:6:6, you're not going to see those changes because it's been matted out. And often when they played in the cinema, you'd have an aperture plate there, so you wouldn't see those slight shift in aspect ratio. And it's not much anyways. Like 1:6:6 is like the style for like the early James Bond films, and RoboCop, its original aspect ratio is 1:6:6, not the 1:8:5 they would do to transfer it to Blu-ray. The sleeve's a bit battered, but you know, it's still in pretty good condition. No issues with laser rot, thank God. And yeah, and it was went for a pretty cheap price, so happy to have that in the collection. Next up, we have the first title released on the Signature Collection, and it's Dragon: The Bruce Lee Story. This would find itself on DVD, all the extras, which I do own still, because I did cover the Dragon: The Bruce Lee Story 4K release, which gave you sort of look at the DTS, LaserDisc, the DVD, the Blu-ray, and then the 4K. I did sell my DTS LaserDisc a few months back because I was very happy with the 4K release, and this was going for a reasonable price. I thought, well, just for sort of purposes of archiving and also being the first title on the Signature Collection, I thought, yeah, I'll get that. And I do like the cover and the gatefold design, because obviously the Signature Collection always came with, you know, the director's signature attached. Obviously it's not, he hasn't signed them all, it's just printed, right? So yeah, it comes with an introduction by Linda Lee Cadwell, screen test with Jason Scott Lee, behind the scenes featurettes, storyboards, trailers, all that jazz, right? So everything you found on the DVD all came from this. So yeah, I love the design. The picture transfer is, again, very good, like the DTS release. They'd reissue a few years later. I'm not sure if there was a Dolby Digital version of this, but this just has the Dolby surround sound PCM audio mix, which is no slouch. So yeah, nice to have. The next title we have is also on the Signature Collection, and it's American Graffiti, George Lucas's second feature film, the one before Star Wars, Obviously this film would inspire the show Happy Days, 1, 2, 3 o'clock. You know, that song is all kind of thrown into Happy Days. It opens the movie with this. This was a huge hit when it came out, and some could argue, you know, if you're not a huge fan of Star Wars, or, you know, you're looking at George's directing style, this could be his best feature film as a director, you know what I mean? Really funny. I mean, it shows that George could do comedy very well. Obviously, this is all kind of inspired by George's own experiences with kind of fast cars and everyone kind of jazzing them up back in the 1950s and into the 60s. So, you know, it's his kind of love letter to all of that. And it, you know, and it made the film very successful, which obviously then would give him clout to make Star Wars. In the gatefold cover, it comes with kind of like notes from George Lucas, Francis Ford Coppola, Ron Howard, Richard Dreyfuss. And it comes to the making of, which would then be transferred onto the DVD and so forth. So it just came with one big long featurette about the film, like about 45 minutes, I recall, I think. This was obviously a THX transfer at the time. It doesn't come with a Dolby Digital audio track, just Dolby Surround, right? This film probably would have been presented in mono. This is before, you know, the introduction of Dolby Stereo, I think. Yeah, I believe so. But the 4K release was very kind of hit and miss with people. I don't own the 4K version. Many people were pissed off about the transfer. This is obviously, you know, George probably tweaked this when it did the LaserDisc transfer back in the mid-90s, but it still looks pretty good. And the sound was very nice as well. And which you kind of expect from George's movies when they get kind of jazzed up again. The sound is always pretty good. And I was happy with the picture. So great film, you know, classic movie. And George's 3 big movies he made, THX, well, 1138 didn't do very well, it bombed. It showed you George Lucas wasn't a bad filmmaker at all, you know. As I've said many times over the years, he's kind of a better producer, he's an ideas guy. And George Lucas admits he doesn't like directing, but it showed you that when he was in the mood to direct, he can do wonders. And then obviously he would continue his success with Star Wars and change the industry. So then he'll kind of, you know, move away from directing, come back, do the prequels, which everyone didn't particularly love. But yeah, when George is in the mood to direct, he makes great stuff. And finally, we have a title on the Criterion collection, and it's Dr. No. I finally completed the Connery collection on the Criterion label. Goldfinger and From Russia with Love are a little bit more common to find on the Criterion label with the commentaries intact. Dr. No, less so, and obviously goes a lot more money, and often it's on American sellers, and thankfully there's a UK seller selling this, and he offered me a good price for it. Again, this is the first release of the film on the Criterion label, so it contains the commentary that was removed later on, and it's got obviously gatefold cover, and it comes with a few extras outside of the commentary. Meet James Bond, theatrical trailer, publicity, the cast, the production team. Some of it's obviously just kind of like stills you kind of, you know, step through. And it makes a kind of early kind of blunder with Criterion's kind of use of supplement features where they would have an extra at the end of side 2. So you'd be watching the movie and suddenly you got a commercial for James Bond bread, right? And then you put in side 3 and you go back to the film. So they kind of figured out, like, we put the extras on side 4 of the last disc, right? So I now have all 3 Connery films on the Criterion collection, and these contain all the kind of commentaries and stuff. So yeah, very happy to complete that finally. And Dr. No, I've watched a couple of times over the years. You all see bits of it, people talk about it a lot. Any Bond documentary, there's a lot of focus on Dr. No for obvious reasons. But I haven't sat down and watched it all the way through for a very long time. And I watched it, and I was kind of surprised how much of the Bond formula is all kind of set up in this film. You forget about those certain things, right? You sort of think, oh, okay, by From Russia with Love, they'll do this. That becomes the sort of traits of James Bond and that franchise. But Dr. No kind of introduced most of it. As a film itself, I wasn't that enthralled by it. There's a lot of kind of not much happening for a while, and then when he gets onto Dr. No's base and things do kick off, it sort of, it's kind of maybe the last 10 minutes of the movie, right? Maybe I'm getting the timing of that wrong, but I definitely prefer Goldfinger and From Russia with Love. But you can't deny the importance of this film and what it did. When it comes to the audio of Dr. No, it was presented in mono when it came out, and throughout the many years when the Bond films would get released every year or two theatrically, the audio would obviously improve, and I think come the late 70s, it would finally be in kind of Dolby stereo. So when they reissue these Bond films on DVD, Blu-ray and 4K, they'll often remix the mono mix into a Dolby Digital 5.1 or a Dolby Atmos mix, and it's always questionable in quality. A fellow YouTuber, Damn Fool Idealistic Crusader, did a video on the audio for the new 4K releases, and the mono mix on the 4K is pretty bad. It's very compressed, and the Atmos mix is missing sound effects and certain musical cues, I believe, maybe little bits of dialogue. So apparently the best presentation of Dr. No in terms of audio is the Criterion LaserDisc. Now, this film's been issued on LaserDisc many times over the years, and DVD and Blu-ray. I can't compare the audio on those ones. I'm not an expert in terms of Dr. No and its audio qualities, but you know, I trust him to sort of know, you know, has a good knowledge of what the film should sound like, and this has been one that's kind of labelled as the best presentation for audio of Dr. No. So if you are a fan out there, you know what I mean, and you want to, I'm sure you've probably taken the LaserDisc audio and mixed it with the 4K picture for the best results, you know. But anyway, I'm happy I have it in the collection. Finally got all the Bond films on Criterion. I've been bizarrely kind of wanting to complete this kind of, I think it's 3 films, but they've always been quite pricey and a little bit out of reach for me. For many, many years, I thought I need to get them, and I finally have. So yes, Bond is complete on the Criterion collection. It's a shame they didn't issue the others, you know what I mean? But I'm not a huge fan of Thunderball. Diamonds Are Forever. Now, For Your Eyes Only is kind of pretty good. Diamonds Are Forever, yeah, it's bad. Yeah, so I presume the other Connery films aren't, you know, as well loved as the first 3. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this LaserDisc pickups video. Again, I do have a couple more titles on the side, which I will cover in the coming months when I put up a sizable amount to show you guys. But yeah, I'm happy with those titles. You know, Ed Wood and Superman may not have the best transfers, I don't think. You know, I definitely stick to the DVD of Ed Wood. I need to get it on Blu-ray. I need to get the Blu-ray of Ed Wood. And I'll stick to the Blu-ray extras of the Superman anthology to watch the Fleischer cartoons. But, you know, I didn't pay a huge amount of money for them. And if I get sick of them or don't really need them, I'll give them to a friend of mine. So it won't go to waste. But anyway, folks, take care and goodbye for now.
Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to click the like button and hit the bell to be notified of my latest reviews. Big thanks to my patrons and YouTube members for supporting the channel. If you want to get involved and gain access to exclusive videos and take part in Q&As, follow the link below.